So this is the official start of this program. I want to welcome everyone. My name is Janet Penn. I work for the Sisterhood of Saalam Shalom, developing programs, resource development, and training. The Sisterhood is an organization throughout North America that brings Muslim and Jewish women together to build long-term relationships, and from that place become allies, break down stereotypes, and stand up for each other. So we have sisters from the Sisterhood on this call from across the United States, as well as individuals volunteering from different communities and congregations who either are hosting or will be hosting a family, a recent Afghan family. So what I want to do now is, let's see here. I need to just move this here. Hang on. Great. I am going to now introduce our speaker and presenter for today. I am so grateful to have Sina Baha here with us today. She hails from Kansas City. She is a member of the Sisterhood of Saalam Shalom and has been very involved in with refugee resettlement in the Kansas City area, also offering to translate for incoming refugees. So Sina, we're so grateful that you're here today. Thank you. She will be giving a 30-minute presentation approximately, followed by 45 minutes of question and answer. Now, because there's so many of you, I would ask that you would put any questions that you have in the chat. I will be monitoring that and trying to, I'll group them so that following her presentation, we can address the ones that are most frequently asked first. So I want to turn this over to Sina, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Janet and Sisterhood of Saalam Shalom, for giving me this opportunity to come and inviting me for this program. I'm going to go ahead and start my share my screen. And let me know if you can see my screen. Okay. Okay, in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, thank you again, Janet and Sisterhood, for allowing me this opportunity to attend this program. I'm so grateful for all of you being here tonight with me to learn about some Afghan cultures and some a little bit of history, which I'm passionate about, and some cultural knowledge of Afghanistan. Let me start by telling you a little bit about myself. I'm an immigrant. I'm an Afghan American. I was born in Kabul, Afghanistan. I was 18 when I moved to Australia with my mom and my siblings in 1993, the beginning of, I would say, civil war. War has been going on for 40 years, but different reasons for the war. And then I moved to US in 1995 when I got married. My father was an officer in the army, and he wasn't pleased how the Afghan government was taken over by the communists and overturned the Republican government. So he and a group of other officers, they were organizing a coup d'etat or a coup against the communist regime. Unfortunately, they had an informant in their group, and he was caught and sent to prison. We never saw him again, so he was most likely executed. Where is Afghanistan? Afghanistan is located in the heart of Asia. It's roughly the size of Texas. Kabul is the capital of Afghanistan. It's located like northeastern Afghanistan. Let me start by a little bit of the history of Afghanistan. The war has been going on for over 40 years in Afghanistan. Different reasons. I know I'm supposed to go really quick over this, but I'll try to be I'll try to summarize it as much as I can. In 1973, the Daud Khan, he declared himself as a president and a coup against his cousin, and he overturned the monarchy and declared himself a president and a Republican government. That a few months later, in that same year, the communists within the military assaulted the presidential palace. They killed the president and all his family members, and they appointed a communist leader in Afghanistan government. In a few months later, in July of 1978, a rebellion against the communist government started. And the Russian army in December of 1979 invaded Afghanistan to save the communist government from collapsing, and they installed another communist leader in Afghanistan government. The regular people, the average Afghans, were not happy how all this politics was going on and how Afghanistan was being invaded by a foreign force and a communist regime. So they considered this a war against our fate. Most of the Afghans, this was a war of believers against non-believers, and that war lasted for 10 years, from 1979 to 1989. The war, if you have heard in the news, the war of Mujahideen, or the freedom fighters. February of 1989, after 10 years of war, the last Soviet troop left Afghanistan. So this was beginning of the end of the Cold War. And the Mujahideen overthrew the communist government in Kabul, and then the fighting between different factions of Mujahideen started for power and prestige. Eventually, a couple of years later, the Taliban, they were completely separate from the Mujahideen, started as a small group and slowly removing the local commanders and warlords. And they were initially welcomed into Afghanistan because people were just tired of the fighting with different factions and innocent people being killed. In 1996, the Taliban removed the Mujahideen government completely. And unfortunately, September 11 of 2001, the tragic attack on the US and destruction of the World Trade Center in New York. The prime source of 9/11, Osama bin Laden, was operating with his group in Afghanistan during that time. October of that same year, US and NATO coalitions, with the support of allies, Afghan allies, they bombed the Taliban and tried to destroy the Taliban and remove them from the government. December of 2001, the Taliban forces, the last of their forces, left Kabul and made way for the new government. The new government was installed by the US and foreign coalitions, and that government lasted from 2003 to 2011. At the same time, Taliban was slowly making their way into Kabul. They were gaining more lands. They were taking over provinces and bigger cities, and eventually, August of this past year, they eventually entered Kabul, the capital, without any resistance. And this is what we are seeing from a lot of the refugees arriving to US in these days. Throughout the 40 years of war, around 5 million Afghans have fled the country to different parts of the world. Afghanistan consists of several ethnic groups such as Pashtun, Tajik, Uzbek, Hazaras, Baluch, Nuristan, Pashai. They all consider themselves Afghan. Pashtuns are the largest ethnic group. They consist of 60% of the Afghan population. The second largest are Tajik, and so forth. There are 30 different dialects spoken in Afghanistan, but Pashto and Dari are the two most common languages that most of the people can speak. Culture. The people of Afghanistan are strong devotee of their faith and strong followers of their customs and cultures. And these traditions are passed on from one generation to the next and becomes part of everyday life and functioning of the society. One of the important parts of the Afghanistan culture is the hospitality and hospitality of their guests. Being hospitable to our guests is very important in our culture. So you, my friends, when you are inviting an Afghan family and trying to host an Afghan family, and just know that guests and treating and hosting a family, they're extremely appreciative to you, and they are. If you're invited into their house, please, and they offer you tea or something to eat, please don't turn it down. It's considered very rude. If they offer you tea or water, just take the cup, have a couple of sips of that water or tea. If you don't like it, you don't have to finish the whole cup. But to completely reject it, it's considered rude. Helping each other, a sense of community takes over in precedence over individuals. Once you gain their trust, you become a family to an Afghan refugee. And when you become a family, they trust you with all their life, and they will.
Annette, you can't get on.
All Afghans value their personal freedom.
It turns out that my
Janet, mute.
Okay, sorry. All Afghans value their personal freedom and the freedom of their country. They're very proud people with strong, and they all have strong opinions. So try not to get into an argument with them. Respect for women is a big deal in Afghan culture. The society is completely different, but there's a huge amount of respect for women in the Afghan society. A couple of very interesting concepts I want to share with you. One is refuge. When a person takes refuge into someone's house, that household is obligated to take an extreme amount of good care of them, even if that person is a big enemy. If you have watched the movie The Beast or The Lone Survivor, these are movies based on the Beast is based on a Russian soldier who he gets lost in a village and he knocks on a door and he just says the phrase Nanawatai. And that household, although knowing that this is a Russian soldier who was killing their brothers and their family members, they take him in, they keep him safe in their household, and they take a good care of them. That's just part of the culture. You cannot deny, if a person is raising their hands for safety and security, you cannot deny that. You have to, as an Afghan culture, you have to provide them with that. Another interesting concept is the council or jirga. A lot of big decisions are made when the elders of a community gather together, and then whatever decision is made, the rest of the community member have to accept it. So now in US, this is not going to happen because families are going to come and they leave a lot of their older relatives at home. But in a household, adults mainly make a big decision for even for the life of the children. I think that's you and I were talking about, Janet. A lot of the decisions in regard to children are made by the adults, whether they're schools, where they hang out, what they buy, where they're gonna go and stuff like that. Even if the children are teenagers, a lot of the family decisions are being made by the parents, the mom and dad. Respect for elders and kindness to children is a big part of our culture. We don't call elders by their first name. We always add uncle so-and-so or aunt so-and-so, and children, we don't call them again with their first name. We add the letter John to it, just means sweet someone. So like my son's name is Samsur, so we don't call him Samsur, we say Samsur John. Just something to keep in mind. We don't have to, here in America, we don't have to use all these concepts, but just something to remember. Some of the customs I want to share. Afghan refugees come from different walks of life. This is very important to keep in mind. Some people, some of the refugees might be traveling here from Kabul or another big city. They're probably fluent in English. The way they dress is different probably than an average Afghan family. The way they interact with Americans is probably completely different. They might have had a lot of exposure with foreigners living in Afghanistan. And at the same time, there might be some families who haven't traveled like 5 miles from their villages or their homes. So they are going to be they probably don't know any English. They have never been exposed to any Western ideas, any foreigner person. So keep that in mind. When you're meeting with them, most of the Afghans, they don't try to make an eye contact when they speak with you. So try to avoid too much eye contact with them. It doesn't mean that they disrespect, it's just part of the culture or custom. It doesn't mean they disrespect you or they lie to you. It just eye contact, the minimal, especially of the opposite gender. We don't make eye contacts. It's just part of the culture. And also respect their personal space. When you are entering their house, take permission. If you have to use, just like we are doing it here in our households and with our neighbors and friends. And if you have to use the restroom, take permission if you're allowed to use the restroom. And please take off your shoes when you're entering their house. It's considered rude to walk inside with your shoes on. And also do not expect to shake hands with opposite gender or do some touching, like touch their shoulders or their backs. It's just not allowed. It's considered like you're invading their privacy, and just please avoid stuff like that. And again, when you're invited into their house for tea or drinks or food, just accept and have a few bites or a few sips. Don't reject it completely, please. What have been the war outcomes? Most of the Afghan Americans, just like me, we have all been traumatized by these wars. The war has caused hundreds of thousands of people to flee the country, migrate to different parts of the world. And a lot of these people coming to different parts of the world, they go through culture shock, because how life is in Afghanistan is completely different than the lifestyle here. And I've gone through that. I've been living here for a really long time, so I'm over it. And there has been no advancement in education, and agriculture, catastrophe, industrialization has not advanced. And there has been a lot of economic problem, and also mental illness is a big problem with the Afghan community here and also in Afghanistan. Just like here, we are recently paying more attention to mental illness and we considering it as an illness. Also in Afghanistan, I think the social media has brought a lot of attention to this regard, and people are not looking at it as being crazy. So a lot of these families who are arriving here, they have gone through a lot of trauma, and please, if you can, have them get their mental well-being checked up, because they might be going through, spouse of man of the house might become abusive towards the children or the family, but the deep down issue might be deep mental trauma that they have gone through, and that needs to be addressed. How can Sisterhood help the Afghan refugees, or if you're sponsoring a family, I'm sure you have already done some of these stuff, but some ways will be to help them to assimilate in American society, get connected with a refugee family through a resettlement agency. Most Afghan families, they don't speak English, so you would need a translator, and most of the time the resettlement agency will provide you with a translator. Different ways to help: you can teach them English, teach them how to drive, enroll the kids in schools, talk to a school counselor and tell them about these children's situation, that the trauma they have gone through. They have moved here from Afghanistan, so they will be behind academically because the schools in Afghanistan have, there has been no schools, and even when there were schools, the education was not prioritized, unfortunately. And most importantly, connect the family to an Islamic center. They will feel very good if you help them in these areas. They will feel like you're a member of the family, and you really, I know you care for them. That's how you take them in and you sponsor these families. But for them to gain that trust, it will be very important if you also connect them to an Islamic center. I was a while ago, a few weeks ago, a few of my friends in a volunteer group, they were asking me like, they were trying to welcome an Afghan family, and they were like, we're gonna furnish the house. How do we make a house feel more like a home? And they were like, how can we decorate it? I laughed at them. I was like, look, don't worry about the decoration. Just give them the basic necessities. But if you really have, your budget allows, just if you're getting prints, just don't have stuff with faces. A wall clock will be appreciated. A thermos. This is something that Afghans drink a lot of tea after breakfast, tea after lunch, tea after dinner, 3 times a day at least. Some families have this thermos ready, and they have instead of water, just tea all day long. So get them one of these thermos. You can get them on Amazon or even Walmart, and this is how they can brew their tea. Most Afghans love, in Afghanistan, most of the houses, they have red woven carpets. And a lot of these families, they probably come here with just a pair of clothing in their backpack. So if you are able to get them a large red carpet, they will really bring the memories of their home back into them, and they will really appreciate it. As long as it's red and it's big, it doesn't really matter what pattern it is, trust me. But the color matters, because it will remind them of those hand-woven carpet of Afghanistan. A pressure cooker. Afghans cook a lot of their food in a pressure cooker. Don't get a high-tech pressure cooker. Just get something very simple and cheap that will do it. A kettle to boil tea for water, and of course, glass cups for hot teas. Okay, it's time for questions. And if you ever have any questions, you can reach me at my email, sinabah@gmail.com. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, Janet. Is that okay? So we can see everyone.
Thank you so much. So for those of you that are here on the call, I just want to let you know that it looks like the license that I set this meeting at had 100 people maximum. So many people were not on the call. I really apologize. It is being recorded, and we will send out the recording to everyone who registered. So we have a question from Matan. Should alcohol be avoided in terms of gifts?
Yes, please. Yeah, Afghans don't drink alcohol, and please do not welcome them with alcohol, and don't ever take alcohol to their homes. Yes.
Okay. So we're going to have a lot of really granular questions here. So this is great. Would large, heavy glass beer mugs work as tea glasses?
As long as they are heat proof, I think they should.
Okay, thank you. So Lisa asks, you've talked about mental illness. Are there drug problems among folks coming from Afghanistan? Is that something we should be mindful of?
I believe there is. I'm not 100% sure, but I've heard some stories of yes, especially amongst those younger generation. Yes.
Okay. Great, thank you. So everyone, well, Sina, are you willing to share the slides with everyone?
Yes, if they would like that. Yes, I don't have any problem.
Great. So I will send to everyone a copy of the slides and a recording. So translation, when helping with individual families, will there be translators available? That's a question I'm going to answer, Sina, because I think it's local to Massachusetts. Right now, the refugee resettlement organizations, Catholic Charities, and Jewish Family Services of Metro West are very overworked, and they do not have tremendous translator capacity. What I have been doing is reaching out to people that I know at different mosques. If you don't have connections at mosques, what you might do is call up a mosque near you and explain what you're doing and ask them if anybody in their congregation is a Pashto or Dari or speaker. And actually today I was at an interfaith concert and I found two Pashto speakers just by going around and asking. So I think the thing that I would ask you to do is step outside your comfort zone a little bit and reach out to a Muslim community center or a mosque. And if there's none near you, call one far away. Okay, so Serene asks, can you please give us a few examples of behavior towards women that exhibits respect for women?
Avoid handshakes. Do not talk, just no eye contact when you speak to them. And don't get too close to them in conversation. Just keep a little distance from women and men at the same time.
Thank you. Is it an Afghan custom to refuse a gift if offered? In other words, is it something that you might want to have to ask twice because it might seem rude to accept on the first offer?
Yes, it does seem rude to accept on the first. So even if they're offering you tea, they might be asking you 2, 3, 4, 5 times just to make you to have a sip of tea or a food at their house. So yes, ask more than once if you're offering a gift, more than once or twice if you really would like them to have it. Like, yes, ask more than once. Definitely.
Thank you for that question. Yeah.
Just go back a little bit, Janet. I was asked alcohol. So Afghans are very strong in their faith. So if you know anything about the Muslim traditions, eating pork, like, we avoid. Most of the Afghan families, they prefer to eat the zabiha meat. So if I'm not sure, I mean, here in Kansas City, some families prepare warm meals to welcome the Afghan families. I don't know how you guys are managing all this. Just make sure those meats or those foods are from halal restaurants or zabiha restaurants or zabiha places. And yes, they're strong in their faith. So anything that is Islamically prohibited, they will, like alcohol and anything with gelatin. So please try to not take those into your homes.
Thank you. So are there other small appliances that would be helpful, like a blender, food processor, hand mixer, or is it just the pressure cooker at this point?
No, everything else, just pressure cooker is one of the important things that a lot of us, we don't use. So that's why I wanted to bring it to everyone's attention, that's something that every Afghan household must have. But food processor, a set of knife, cutting boards, yes, definitely. Wooden spoons.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. So here's a very specific question. When you say no faces, does that mean a child's Elmo chair would not be appropriate? In other words, like a Muppet or some cartoon character, or is it just human faces?
Faces as far as when they're hanged on their houses, like prints. No, a face on the chair should be, a cartoon feature, that's absolutely fine. No, that should be fine.
Okay.
Again, it's depending on the families. If the family doesn't want it, then please don't be offended. It just sometimes depends on the families, how they feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm going to mix in, there's a few questions just more general to Afghan refugees. So where are the main areas of refugees where they're coming from? Do you know that now at this point, or?
I think mainly from Kabul, but they could be from other parts. They have migrated to Kabul and then they're moving here. I'm not exactly sure, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What I do know is that the resettlement agency in Boston has said that this is the most diverse group of refugees that they have resettled in as long as they can remember. And the resettlement is coming so quickly, much more quickly than before, and in larger numbers. And the federal government, there's a fair bit of chaos. So people are not coming necessarily with their work papers and their social security numbers. So it could take a few weeks before people can actually begin to look for work until we really can find out more information.
Yes.
Okay. So I have a question here from Tony. Do any of the local universities have programs we might find translators? Tony, I think that's more of a question. Sina is in Kansas City, so I'm not sure she can answer that here. But again, I think the best place to go, you certainly can call universities, either their Islamic Studies department, that would certainly be a place to go if there's nearby, as well as Muslim community centers and mosques or masjids. And I think people would be very happy. My experience is people are very happy to help. Okay.
Let me add something to that. If you go to the website, findhellousa.org, that will, and you put your zip code, that will tell you all the resettlement agencies nearby, and you can reach out to those resettlement agencies and find any kind of, help with these refugees, translators, medical, mental health needs. Yeah, I wish I had the link. I could have sent it to you, but it's findhellousa.org.
Findhellousa.org. That's right. I put that in the chat. If you actually Google Hello USA, it's a new app that's being put together, and there's a lot of information. Diverse in what way? So the diversity, you want to speak to that, Sina?
Sure. I mean, I spoke in one of my slides. They were like, so Afghanistan is a very diverse country itself. We have so many different ethnic groups. So that's what it means, diverse in different ethnicities. So every ethnic group has their own language. There are 30 different dialects, and all those languages, they come with their own customs and a different way of, dressing or clothes, and different way of different foods. So different parts of the country have, that's what it means by diversity, very diverse group, because different parts, north is different from the south, the language, the way they dress, and the way they, do a lot of daily activities.
Great. Do Muslims eat shellfish?
Do they what?
Eat shellfish, shrimp.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So it's different than kosher, and that's one way that it's different than kosher.
They do eat, but since Afghanistan is a landlocked country, I mean, we are not exposed to a lot of seafood. So for me, I still don't eat shrimp because I wasn't exposed to it when I was a child. I eat fish, but I don't like eating shrimp. So just because Afghanistan is landlocked, seafood is not very a staple food in our diet. But as Muslims, we can eat shrimps and any type of seafood.
Right. So Kina has a question about, do we know if children will have attended formal schooling at all? And there's no way that we can know that ahead of time.
We would not, just depending on which part of the country they're coming, if they have been to schools.
Right. Beth asked, is it likely that refugees will be literate in their own language?
Very much so. Yes.
Right. Although we do know from the resettlement agency in Boston that some people have come and they're not literate. They're coming from small villages. There are some people coming who are not literate. And the suggestion was to make sure that we ask, would you like to read this, rather than just handing something? In other words, if we have a sense that might be the case, so someone doesn't lose face.
Yes, and you don't ask them, are you literate? Can you read or not read? Yeah, that's a good way to present it. Do you want to read this? But you don't ask them directly, hey, can you do this or not?
Right.
Yeah, that's considered right.
Is it important to provide a bidet?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Thank you. No, this is all information. In general, will televisions be welcome?
Yes, very much so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Afghan families, they love watching TV. I mean, no matter, again, it depends. Some families might be against it, but overall, in general, TV has been the only entertainment in the Afghan lives, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Personal care items. What about personal care items? I'm not really sure what that question means. Are there ways that, I don't know.
Personal care item, you can make like a personal care item for men and women, like razors. It could be shampoo, hair brushes, toothbrushes, toothpaste, tweezers for women. And I know a lot of the bases, they're in high need of feminine products. So a lot of pads. Afghan women don't use tampons, just pads only. So, I mean, it could be in that. There was a question, I think, how do we present bidet? In some of the volunteer groups in my city, they make a welcome basket, and you guys might have already done this. In the welcome basket, they put a prayer mat, a jainamaz, a kufi, a praying hat, a couple of hijabs, a copy of Quran, a tasbih or the rosary. And you can also put this bidet in that basket too, if someone, doesn't know how to present a bidet to a family. Or you can just put
Right.
just an idea.
Okay. All right. So Udit, who I said that there's an app from the App Store, Find Hello. So thank you, Udit, for that. Don reminds us that there are some Pakistani members, because there's large Pakistani communities in the Boston and Worcester areas, from the local mosque speak Pashto. So again, contacting a local mosque is a great way to go. Here's a thing: our understandings that Afghans that speak Dari can easily communicate with Iranians who speak Farsi. Is that your expectation? And if so, is it helpful to find Farsi speakers?
Yes, it is. Not in every occasion, but yes, majority of the Dari speakers, they understand Farsi. So Farsi from Iran and Pashto of the Pakistani will be helpful if you cannot find an Afghan Pashto speaking translator.
Okay, I'm going to put in the chat here the two languages that are spoken primarily in Afghanistan, Pashto and Dari, and because someone had a question about that. So I just put that in, and okay. So Don is saying this is a individual whose congregation has already accepted a refugee. They're from a small village outside of Jalalabad. The family's mother has never been to school and is illiterate in Pashto. So I guess asking again, would you like this, is one way to avoid losing face. Okay.
I would say a small village outside of Jalalabad is unlikely for the adults to be literate. Even the man, I'm not sure if he is, and even the children might be with very small amount of education, I would say.
Great. Okay. So here's a question about children. Are there any tips for doing things with children so that they don't offend or trouble the parents? We don't want to impose our culture on their children. Thoughts about that?
Anything you would like to do, any idea you have, you ask the permission of the parents first. Can I do this with your child? Coloring books are they're educational and they're fun to do. Crayons or coloring pencils, I think the children would like those. Do some, I would say some math works or some readings and teach them ABCs and stuff, because some of these children, even if they have gone to school, English is a second language in most of the Afghan schools, but it's not emphasized that well, so they will not be able to speak. Just try to help them academically.
Great.
And musical instruments, I would say avoid them if you can. Not playing cards, like playing, what is that? Connect Four, games like that. It's intellectually, it's good for the kids. They will learn, and it's not too many directions to teach them about those games. So stuff like that you can do with kids.
Great. Okay. I have a question here. Pads disposable or clothes to be washed? I'm not sure.
Disposable pads, washable will not be.
Okay. All right. Serene wanted to know repeat the items in the welcome basket. If you can repeat them, I'm putting them in the chat. Your personal care items.
Yes. I'm going to go into that welcome basket that some of my friends here in Kansas City make, not the personal care items. I'm going to start with the welcome basket. A prayer mat.
Yeah, keep going.
A couple of hijabs. Tasbih or the rosaries. A kofi.
What is that?
A hat for men, a small hat, white hat. Copy of Quran. A copy of Quran, and maybe a bidet at the bottom of the basket.
Okay, so I put that in the chat. Okay, So Don is saying his wife was singing and we're told not to bring the guitar, but drums were okay. Is that something you've experienced or?
I don't know, because drum is being played in Afghanistan. It's a very common musical instrument. Maybe guitar was something very new and Western to them, and drum was bringing home memories. It's really hard for me to talk about this family, but yeah, drum is a very common musical instrument. Almost every household in Afghanistan has it. Kids play with a drum, but it might not be acceptable for some other families. Just hard to say, to know. Get to know the family first before you introduce them to some of this stuff. Get to know them first, and when you do that, uh, ask for permission first. Get to know them first and try to be their friends. And once you become their friend, they will look at you as family. Then even if they don't like you doing some stuff, they will not. Yes, they do know that hand dance from Don.
Right. So it does sound like what you're saying, Seema, is that when in doubt, ask.
Yes.
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 Okay.
When in doubt, ask, and don't. If you're not sure, just don't do it until you know the family well and you warm up to them.
Right. Coloring books may have human images. Is that a problem?
Might be, like if the images are not clothed well properly. So I would stick with flowers, sceneries, and one of the things that Nihab and I have done with my children, like teach them different states. They're coloring books that about different states, and something that's educational and fun at the same time for the children.
Mm-hmm. Great. Aziz asked, are there things we need to know about Shia and Sunni differences so that we would handle things accordingly or differently? Is that something you can speak to?
I mean, culturally, these are all, they apply to Sunni or Shias. It doesn't matter. Just try to be educate yourself a little bit about the Islam before you're doing stuff. It doesn't matter. I mean, culturally, these things relate to Sunni or Shias. It doesn't matter what they're.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to go back to something that you said earlier, and that was about, we talked about, well, ask. And earlier today, I was asking you, is it appropriate to ask questions to people? And I would love for you to speak a little bit about how you responded to me, because I think that's really interesting. I know sometimes in the US, the culture is, you want to ask a lot of questions to get to know someone. So if you could speak to that a little.
I would say ask when you warmed up to them, when you have become close to them. They're not gonna, even if you want to know their story, how they made it here right away, right? What kind of trauma they went through to get here. They're not gonna open up to you right away, but just wait, and then wait until they talk to you or speak to you about their traumas, and then they will speak to you once they feel comfortable with you. But asking too many questions at the first visit is not a good idea, probably.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So there's one that I skipped. So thank you, Sheila, for picking that up. Will family rituals be different on Friday? Like for Juma prayer or?
Surprisingly in Afghanistan, a lot of families, a lot of women don't go to mosque. Men go to mosque, but here in the US, I go to mosque every Friday because that's where I meet my friends. I pray in congregation and I take my children. So again, it depends on families. Some women may not be going to mosque. Men are obligated to go to mosque. So it will depend on families on if on Friday they want to go to mosque or not. But it will be very nice of the families who are sponsoring these families to get them connected to a mosque, because the mosques or Islamic centers, they offer Sunday school, they have programs for youth, they have women's programs or lectures. So it'll be very nice if they get connected to an Islamic center, and that's where they will find another Afghan family to talk to or get connected with them and feel comfortable with them. It'll be very nice.
Thank you. And that's something that if you just Google mosque near whatever your zip code is, you'll be able to find it. So Corinne asks, what are views related to mental illness? Do you think most people are open to seeking mental health support?
Probably not, but you will get some clues if they need mental support, honestly. And in my opinion, all Afghans coming during this time, they will need some mental support. Whether they are volunteering to get it voluntarily or not, that's going to be a challenge. But if the sponsored families, if they can kind of not make them, but encourage them to get mental treatment. That'll be very good. Sometime even with medication, because I know a lot of these families have gone through a lot of trauma. They might deny it, like, no, this will go away. But trust me, just encourage them to get mental treatment.
Okay. Thank you. So it looks like there are some resources that people are putting in the chat. I love it. They're taking their phones while they're on this call, and there was a portable bidet. Udit said, hello, tushy.com. Okay, that's a good one. There is, and I'm trying to think about there. I know I saw somebody put it on. There is a language, one of the best translation. Here it is, Tarjimli. So Don put it in at 7:35, and I'm going to put it in the chat again so you don't have to scroll. It's this is, according to people in the field, the best translation that's available, so that when you can't find someone to call on the phone, Tarjimli is the place to go. So here's a question from Bonnie and David. Are there any issues that most of us, for those that are Jewish, might there be any issues where they might be uncomfortable? Had they had exposure to Jews? Is this something that is something to be aware of?
I don't think they would have any exposure to Jews, but just if you make them feel comfortable, they really would not care what your beliefs are, because they would not. But as long as you're helping them and they warm up to you, it wouldn't matter what your belief systems are. I don't think they would. Again, it depends on families, where they come from and how much exposure. I cannot speak to this, to be honest with you, 100%, just depending on the families.
Mm-hmm. So here's a question. Any meat that gets brought in needs to be halal. What about chicken, and what about, are vegetarian meals common?
Yes, they are, but a lot of Afghans are meat eaters. So the meat has to be halal from the halal grocery stores, or not even just kosher halal or zabiha. And yes, vegetable is a big source of our diets, and beans as well. But meat is, yes, it's common in every meal.
Okay.
Yes.
One of the things that I know, for those of us that are in the greater Boston area, Restaurant Depot has 40-pound boxes of chicken parts, like thighs and legs, and it's $24. It's 60 cents a pound. So that once more families come in, we might want to, a few of us get together, perhaps on the listserv that Catholic Charities has put together, and go in on that, because if they have room in their freezer, to split up the 40 pounds of chicken among several families, it's definitely the cheapest way to go. Okay. So here's another question. Is it acceptable for a man to teach a woman to drive, or to bring a woman to an appointment? So the volunteer is a man, the woman has a medical appointment.
She might feel comfortable, or she may not feel comfortable. She might bring one of her children in the back seat, because according to the Muslim tradition, you cannot be with an opposite sex in the same room. You need to have a third person in there. So it just depending on the family, they might or may not feel comfortable.
Okay.
It is, if it's possible, it's better to have female volunteers with a female.
Mm-hmm. But what about a female driver with a male? Let's say I take a man to a doctor.
That might be more acceptable than the other way around.
Okay, great. So there's a large mosque, and there are several mosques in Boston that include African American or primarily African Americans. Is that something that people might feel comfortable, not comfortable? Is it an issue, whether it's race, whether it's Shia Sunni?
Afghan culture is very close to Indo-Pakistani cultures and traditions. So if there is a mosque that has majority of Indo-Pakistan, they will feel more comfortable. But as far as Sunni and Shia, I don't know. I can't speak on that behalf. But yes, if there's an Indo-Pakistani masjid, they might feel more comfortable, because we usually use a lot of the common grocery stores. They can give each other tips of, this is where you do this, that's where you do that. A lot of connections are also made through those.
Mhm. So the mosque in Sharon and Wayland, there are large majorities of South Asians at those mosques. The Islamic Society of Boston Mosque has people from all different walks of life, including South Asians. I don't know about, well, I know Worcester also does. I'm not sure about Cambridge, the mosque in Cambridge. Okay, Lisa, who is part of Welcome Home, says another resource in Boston area, Dignity Matters, provides feminine hygiene projects to people in need. So that's a great resource for feminine hygiene products. Okay, a question. What was the most helpful thing someone said to you or did for you during your transition to the US? And then the corollary is, what was the least helpful?
Oh, that has been a long time ago. Let me think. I think the most helpful was to take me to places, take me around, take me shopping, take me to places where I needed to go because I didn't know how to drive.
Mhm.
And the least helpful, gosh, I have only had good memories of even my first few days of arriving. So I can't think of anything, the least favorite, but that was probably one of the, to take me places, get me around, introduce me to people of my own community.
Great. Thank
Yes.
you. So here's a question. Go ahead.
Grocery stores and my own foods and stuff like that. So yeah, that was probably the most helpful thing.
Mhm. There's a India market in Waltham that has a lot of foods. It's also a halal market as well. So question, what if we find large rugs, but they're not in red? Is that okay? Or should we hold out?
No, I mean, if you have the opportunity to find a red rag, just get a red. If not, Afghan people don't like to walk on hardwood floor or tiles. So any rag will be better because they don't like to walk on just tiles and hard. That's not what they're used to. So if you cannot find a red one, that's okay too.
Great. So what about accepting an experience with Western medicine? Is this going to be new or something that people are used to?
Like Western medicine, like
I don't know, traditional healing versus.
No. Just the Western medicine will be fine too. Yeah, they take medicine.
Okay.
Actually, medicines are like a treat. Anything that will cure their headaches, they will take. I mean, last time I went to Afghanistan, I took a bottle of Tylenol and everyone had a headache. They would ask me, do you have one of those meds that cure the headache? So it was like, yeah, candy. You just pop it up and their headache will be gone. So
Great. Jody, you asked, will they expect children to be enrolled in school as soon as they arrive? It's our understanding from the resettlement organizations that it may take a week or two or more, but that the first few days, it's really important just for people to settle in. They will have been coming and there's been so much disruption in their lives. It's not a bad idea. To talk to the schools and let them know if you know the ages of the children, but the reality is you're not going to know most likely until they arrive. Here's a great one. What's your favorite Afghan cookbook? And do people, would that be something they would like, or would just be that we would like so we could cook for them?
You don't have to cook for them Afghan food. If you get a food from a Middle Eastern restaurant, they will appreciate it. I don't have a favorite Afghan food. Everything is from my memory, whatever my mom and my grandma cooked. So I've learned and I have tweaked it and improved it and have given it a little Western flavor to it. And then that becomes my cooking. So I don't really have a favorite cookbook. Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
I have a private question right here I want to answer. Someone asked me if do Pashtun have problem with Dari speakers? No, they do not have problem. I mean, the ethnic conflicts, really, when I was growing up in Afghanistan, there was no conflict with different ethnicities. I grew up and I had friends from all over the country speaking Pashto, Dari, Uzbek, Hazara. They were all my friends. These conflicts started after the Civil War, after all those warlords were fighting for their own benefits and getting ahead. So this is when all the ethnic conflicts has started. So I would say no, Pashtuns don't have any problem with Dari speaking people. Done.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Wendy's wondering if we should limit the number of volunteers who interact with the family. Initially, what do you think the first week or two would be most helpful, Sina?
When you interact with them?
No, in other words, should it be just a few people initially? Because most of the communities have a large number of volunteers, because the support is going to need to go on for a long time. So just a handful isn't enough. But for the first few weeks, what do you have a recommendation?
I would say have one main person that they can contact, not have like 5-10 members they could be as many people go and visit them and help them, but have like 1 or 2 of main contacts for those families. It will be more helpful. It will reduce chaos, and it will not double the efforts of all the volunteers.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we have some information here. Bonnie and David are saying they have Pakistani friends who prefer the Wayland Masjid, the mosque in Wayland. The mosque in Cambridge, it's my understanding there are more Arabs from the Middle East at that mosque. Don is saying that there's a mosque in Lexington, and it's almost a majority Pakistani. Okay. Okay. Paul's wondering who in the family tends to do the shopping, food, clothes, those kind of tasks. Are tasks split, I guess, sex according to the sex, and if you could speak to that.
Well, in Afghanistan, it was mainly men. They would be the one who would be bringing bread home. They would be the one who would be working in most of the households. So they'll be doing a lot of the shopping. In my household, my husband doesn't even know what's and where. So I do all the shopping. So it really depends on, what the family is. And like tonight, my husband cooked dinner and I was just sitting and trying to prepare for this presentation. So it really depends on the families and where they come from. But yes, in Afghanistan, mostly the men would do the shopping and getting all the stuff for the household.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Judith wanted to know, are the refugees likely to be vaccinated? It's my understanding from the refugee resettlement that they will have come at least with one COVID vaccine, and that others, they'll be getting screened at Boston Medical Center, and they'll find out what other vaccinations are needed. Is there anything else you can add to that, Sina?
My understanding is that the reason they're staying in these bases a lot longer than they previously were, and remember, they're leaving Afghanistan, they're moved to Germany, Qatar, or United Arab Emirates. So they're not coming directly from Kabul, Afghanistan to US. So they get their medical checkups, they get all their vaccinations, because there was a outbreak of measles, I feel, a few months ago. So they're getting all their vaccination up to date, and they're getting their COVID vaccination as well. And now when they come here to the military bases, again, they're getting their medical checks and getting all their vaccination updated if they haven't done it already, and also their COVID shots. So that's my understanding, yes.
Right. And as we've been told, there are exceptions to that. So again, that's something that will be probably not figured out the first few days, but shortly thereafter. A question about wearing masks when we go into their homes. Can you speak to that, Seema?
I would say for your own safety, yes, definitely wear a mask when you're around them, and ask them to have masks on too. For your concern, because we don't know if they have been vaccinated when they were vaccinated. And even us here living in US with vaccines, I mean, wherever I go, I put my mask on just for my own safety.
Right.
Before we move on to the next question, I'm just going to jump in here and just mention a couple of things. Someone asked earlier, the first week of when they arrive, how it's going to be. Some of these families, just like I said, they probably come here directly from a village, so they have never been exposed to a bathroom, a toilet, or a restroom. So show them how to use a bathroom, show them how to start and close a shower, and show them how to use a toilet. Also have them see how the different electronics, like a food processor, is working. How do you turn it on, turn it back off? What is a microwave for? They probably have never had a microwave before. A stove, just for their own safety. So show them all these kitchen stuff, at least the first week of their life. The lights, the AC, I mean, not the AC anymore, the heater, yes, so stuff like that. Just try to show them, because they may not know how to use those stuff in their household, the washer and dryer at the homes.
Mhm.
That would
So
be very helpful, yes.
would it be appropriate to say, may I show you how to use, and that way?
Yes, and just just take the for instance, Jan, if you're in their household, just ask the woman to come and follow you and say, do you know how to use the shower, open and close it? Do you have warm water? Does your water heat up? Do you have cold water? Just show them that you care for them, you're concerned. At the same time, you're teaching them something. Then you will know if they knew or didn't know how to use it. And
Great,
wash your hands as well. Yes.
great. Okay. So I am scrolling through to see if I have answered all the questions here. Are they likely to want to garden?
They do. Most of them do. Well, right now they still have a few more months until spring to decide if they want to garden or not. And if they have live, I mean, depending on where they're gonna live, they probably live in an apartment. There might be no place. But yes, most Afghans they love to garden.
Great. Okay. So it looks to me, if anybody has a question that I've missed, my apologies. If you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, that would be fun. Oh, the one other thing I want to say before I do that is I hear that kids love soccer. I have heard that too. So that might be, so a question though, is that something that only the boys play? Can girls and boys play soccer together? What about that?
It just depending, but yes, kids love playing soccer and also bike riding. Kids love riding their bikes. The girls love dolls and how to dress the dolls, how to comb the hairs and stuff like that. A lot of hair, long hairs with the girls. So a lot of like hair ties and hair bows and stuff. They would love that as gifts.
Mhm. And would girls and boys ever play soccer together?
When I was growing up, yes, I was like a tomboy. I had 4 cousins. They were all boys and they were my age, and I could not wait to play with them every Friday when we used to go to my grandma's house. So it just depends, and I would just beat them in every game they would initiate. I would just fly kites with them. I'll make kites. So it just depends on families or how they're raising their
Okay,
children. Yeah.
great.
I would like to, I'm sorry, I'm just going to interject here. I live 5 minutes from the apartment where they'll be living in Cambridge, and we have had incidents of violence. We had a murder 8 months ago, quite close to their house, and then very close in the park, one of the parks, there was a murder 5 years ago. And there was also a shooting between gang members somewhat close to their house, but they're near 2 parks there. So I have 2 questions. I think a translator, let me put this as a question. Should a translator try to explain to them that they must not walk in parks after dusk or certainly after dark? And will a translator be able to do that sensitively so as not to trigger their trauma and also in a culturally appropriate way? So that's one question. And a related question is, should they be told right away when they come not to walk in either park after dark if they want to walk,
And yes, thank you for the question. Definitely tell them this is for their own safety. I mean, yes, it involves their own safety, and they don't know. They see the park greenery and they think it's a safe place. So they wouldn't know that there was a murder and stuff like that. So please make them aware and tell them there's nothing to be, there's no sensitivity. This involves their own personal safety and the safety of their children if the family has small children. So it's very important to inform them. Actually, I had the same incident with one of the families that I have been helping here in Kansas City. And there was a group of ladies, they were delivering some food from the food pantry to their house. And they called me, they were like, Sina, their little girl is sitting outside the balcony and there are a few boys who are drunk and they're walking around. Can you tell the mom? The mom was in the hospital at those days. So I was like, yeah, I'll tell them, but not right away because the mom is in the hospital. So I told the mom a little while later, I was like, you have to be careful. Don't let your daughter be alone outside. There are kind of people on the street. There are boys who are drunk. They're walking around. So just be extra careful. So yes, please tell the translator to explain to the family. They have gone through trauma. We don't want to have them go through another trauma of losing a family member. So to avoid that, it's better to tell them, yes.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
No problem.
So I see here Marion is giving us some information about translation. For those of you that have not worked with translators before, the proper etiquette is speak directly to the person. So perhaps I'm speaking to Sina now, and I'm going to say several sentences, then I stop, and the translator will then translate. So don't speak to the translator, speak to the individual. My guess is most of us will be speaking through translators over the telephone, so that it might be slightly different. Okay. Will we know what kind of city, village people are coming from? The answer is no. We will likely have several days notice, and that's all, and we won't know anything about them, perhaps up until a few days before they arrive. Okay. Okay, the link findhellousa.org didn't work. Donna, you might want to go to the App Store and as Udit said, Hello USA, and see if you can find it that way. Looks like volleyball is also another sport that people might like.
Janet?
Yes.
It's Find USA Hello.
Find USA Hello. Thank you so much.
Yes, it's find.usahello.org.
Find, I'm writing this in the chat, find.usa.hello.
No, hello.org. USA Hello, no dots.
Find.usahello.org.
Yes.
Thank you so much, whoever that was. So that is there it is. So Caroline has the resource center there. Great. Okay. What can we expect Afghans to know about America?
The movie Titanic, honestly. I'm from the American forces. They don't know much probably. So just try to show you kindness, and then they will see that through individual helpers.
Right, right. That's something that we've been told over the last few weeks, that at the beginning, human kindness is the most important thing we can offer.
Yes, yes.
Right.
It's very important.
Bonnie and David is saying, our experience with previous refugees, don't try to teach everything all at once. It can be very overwhelming. Concentrate, for instance, on appliances, the most important ones first. So again, it sounds like really thinking about what are the most important things that you can do, and to not overwhelm. Okay. The chat will be saved so that people will have access to it. So you'll have all the links. Absolutely. Okay. I may have missed something. Are there any other questions either that you put in the chat that I haven't answered, or anything else you'd like to ask Sina?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Sina, I am wondering if it would make the families more comfortable if women covered, if we covered our heads, even just with a scarf.
Oh, that's very sweet of you. If you do that, it doesn't really matter if you do or not. They already know that American way of life, that American woman done. I covered like a few months ago. I wasn't covered all my life. So if you do that, it will really warm their heart, but we really don't have to.
Okay, thank you.
So it sounds like it's personal preference. If someone would feel comfortable doing it, it might be appreciated, but don't do it if it would make you feel uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, that's very true.
Great.
If you're gifting them and with clothing, try to get them some moderate, not moderate,
Modest.
modest clothing. Yes. Avoid short dresses, tank tops, and shorts for the girls, and men they usually wear long pants and no tank tops. So if you want to gift them with clothing, just try to go modest clothing.
Okay. So there's a question about pillows and sitting on the floor. Are they large pillows? Can you use sort of small pillows?
I think Meredith is showing some pillows of her own in the camera. Yes, those are very traditional way of sitting in the household, but a comfortable sofa will do that too. It's very hard to find those. Someone asked me if they sell them online, and I told them my own ones were made, custom made at home. My mother-in-law made them. I don't know any stores that would sell these pillows and those mattresses that are, again, have red covers on them that people sit on the floors. At the beginning, if you get them comfortable sofas, that should do enough. Just try to stay away from bulky furniture like a large TV cabinet or a huge dining table. Just try to minimize their houses with a lot of furniture. They like large carpets, but just comfortable sofas will do. You don't have to get them cushions and mattresses to sit on the floor, really.
So are small cushions useful or not really?
No, not really, bigger ones.
Okay, then I'll return the ones I bought. Okay, so here's a question from Florence. Do they generally have a favorable or unfavorable opinion of Americans?
It just depends. The war has probably not helped the view of Afghan on Americans. But again, we accepting them here as refugees, again, that's going to wash away a lot of those bad feelings. So show kindness, and that's what I'm going to say.
Great. Rena Rosenberg, I see your hand if you want to unmute.
Yeah. It was just a question that I had written in the chat. It's rather a general one, but which aspect of American culture do you think will be most challenging for Afghans? Especially, I'm thinking of what the children may encounter in school. But what is it? I don't know if you could generalize to that, but what do you think will be often the most challenging, and perhaps in the first few months, especially?
I think for the children at schools, mostly the concept of boyfriend and girlfriends will be very shocking to the Afghan youth, because that's not what the religion allow us to do and to be. And for adults, it may be, me coming here as a teenager, that was what was very shocking to me, not here in Australia actually. And also Afghans are very family oriented. A lot of them live in the same household, and here people live on their own, and this might be something shocking or new to them. A lot of people prefer to live on their own, and children move out of their house before they're married. In Afghanistan, children do not leave the houses before they're married. Sometimes even the married children live in the same households.
Thank you for that question, Rena. Okay, back to the granular here. Would a red futon mattress do?
Yes.
Okay, great. Do people prefer to sleep on a mattress with no frame?
Probably not anymore. Some might. It just depends.
Okay. And I did learn on Friday from Catholic Charities that as a resettlement agency, the government requires certain things to be provided. And one of them is a bed frame for every individual, and a dresser, a kitchen table with a number of chairs for the people, so that we need to have the bed and the frame in the apartment. If they choose to not accept the frame, then we can remove it. But according to Catholic Charities, as my understanding, that we need to provide it. And I see that, yeah, go ahead.
That's a good idea, I was saying, yep.
Okay. Are girls and boys used to being in school together?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Dawn is saying their mother is very reluctant to go outside. Any ideas what, if any, reasons there might be, or?
Is Dawn sponsoring an Afghan family?
Yes, yes, they have a family here already.
Probably the fear. She's just probably not feeling comfortable, depending on how long has she been here. But the fear of the outside and the unknown. The fast cars, if they live close to a big busy street, maybe the fast cars moving, and she's afraid of that, or but that's what I would think it is. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know the situation of that family, but it might be that fear of unknown.
So do you have any advice for Dawn about how to approach it, just to give her space, or do you suggest every once in a while asking, would you like to just stand outside? In other words, how to make sure that she doesn't just, involute, as it were.
Maybe take him to a nice park for a little picnic or a little tea drinking. Just take them out and slowly, and take her on a grocery shopping trip or a clothing shopping trip. So maybe slowly she will be feeling more comfortable to leave the house and be outside.
Great. Okay. So it sounds like Don's family bought a sewing machine, and the mother is crafting traditional clothing for herself and her children. Is that something, again, do many Afghans use sewing machines and sew their own clothes? Is that something to ask about?
Especially the older people, they love to have their own handmade clothing. They don't like the store-bought stuff. But it depends, not everyone can sew, so I don't want a whole bunch of sewing machines to be bought and then not used. So ask the families if they would like a sewing machine. If anyone wants to get one, then yes, most of the Afghans like to sew their own clothing, especially the older people.
Great. Okay. All right. So are people going to be used to the cold winters and hot summers that we have here in New England?
Not this cold. Afghanistan has 4 seasons. You know, we have snow in the winter and the summers are really hot, and then we have fall and spring, but it doesn't snow as much as it snows here because of the climate change. I remember me growing up, it would snow so much that the pile of snow will be gathered in the yard and we will all make slides on it and slide. And nowadays people say it doesn't snow much at all, but cold, yes, but not this cold. So winter jackets and winter gears will make great gifts. Yeah.
Great. Okay. I'm doing my best to keep up with the chat. We have just a couple of more minutes, probably time for one more question if there is one. So if I've inadvertently missed it in the chat, is there anyone that has a final question for Sina?
How much clothing do you expect they'll come with?
Minimal, very minimal. I would say probably a pair or 2 pair of clothing in the back. And that was probably when they left their homes a few months ago. So that will all be summer clothing, nothing for winter, I would say.
Right.
I
Great.
have 2 questions.
Yes.
I wanted to know, we don't need cribs for baby, is that correct? Do they co-sleep or do we need a crib? And then my second question is, do Afghan women wear pants at all?
The first question is yes, babies would need cribs. I mean,
They would.
I remember, yes, they would need cribs. That's how the moms feel more comfortable leaving the babies in the crib during the day or at night when they sleep. During the day when they have it. Yes, and Afghan women do wear pants, loose pants, but yes, they do wear jeans and all sorts of pants. And
Great.
Thank you.
No problem.
So I see that our time is here at the end. I want to thank all of you who have come on, and Sina, for your presentation and for your patience and all of your wisdom and sharing your experience with us. Really, really helpful. And I thank all of you for attending and being part of this conversation. We look forward to those of us that are in Massachusetts working together. For those of you that are in the Sisterhood of Saalam Shalom, there will be opportunities for sisters to get involved on a more, within your own community. More information about that is coming. And so, again, I just want to thank you, Sina, for your time and your sharing your perspective and wisdom with us.
Oh, thank you, Janet, so much for allowing me to share my information and cultural knowledge. And I so appreciate it. And I want to extend my special thank you to all those families who are sponsoring these Afghan refugees. May God reward you all for your good deeds. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this good deed.
Great.
Thank you, Janet. Good night.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.